Hi everybody, it's Dr. Brenda over at Revitalize Physical Therapy. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I'm going to talk all about postpartum exercise and how to safely modify in order to help regain core strength, pelvic floor strength, and avoid those common mom issues. So if you haven't already, download our postpartum exercise cheat sheet. The link is in the description of the video. So the cheat sheet basically lists out specific exercises. It gives you specific modifications and also kind of a good starting point on where to start and things to avoid. So what I'm going to talk about in the Facebook Live right now is kind of overall general guidelines and tips and tricks. So download the worksheet because that will give you more of the specifics that you're going to be wanting. Okay? And let me know if the link is not working. So if you go and download it and something's wrong with it, I had a little issue with it. So just put it in the comments. And if you are tuning in, feel free to give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, and comment with any questions that you have or anything that you want to know more about with exercise. So to get started, I really want to just kind of say that no matter where you are in your postpartum journey, this is going to be appropriate for you. So everyone is starting off at different stages, and that's regardless of if you are immediate postpartum, a couple months, maybe a year postpartum. Everyone is different and everyone is going to start off in a different place. So a lot of times women realize that their body's maybe not quite the same after a baby. That they're not at the same physical level as they were prior to pregnancy. This is really, really common. And it's not anything that you did during pregnancy or after. It's just your body's way of handling pregnancy and the impact and stress on your body. So with that being said, you will most likely need to modify exercises in that postpartum phase, because you're not going to be able to just jump back into doing what you were doing pre-pregnancy. It doesn't quite work like that. So it's really difficult for women to kind of take a step back sometimes, or to realize that they're not able to do everything that they used to be able to do. Trust me, I was like right there in that boat. I have a really hard time being able to say, oh, I can't do this. That's tough. But I will say, if you kind of listen to your body and you modify these exercises, you will go so much further in the long run than if you just try to kind of jump back in. If you try to jump back in, oftentimes you're going to end up with some kind of injury or common mom issue, like I said. So that would include a diastasis recti, a prolapse, incontinence, back pain, pelvic pain, just to kind of cover the most common. So hang with me here. It's just, I want to just say, super important, and just recognize that where you're starting, don't compare it to where anyone else is. So modify based on what you can do currently and what's safe for you. So it's not a competition, even though some of us competitive ones might like to make it that. But okay, I kind of broke this into two different categories. I kind of broke it into newly postpartum. So you're maybe within those first 3 months, you really haven't started going back into exercise yet at this point, or getting back into any of your typical activity. So that's kind of one group. And then longer postpartum, maybe you're 6 months up to a year postpartum, and you've gone back into exercise, or you're increasing your activity. I kind of broke it into two camps because there's different guidelines and modifications for both. So I'm going to start with kind of the newly postpartum. So this is going to be for all of you moms that are either pregnant right now and trying to prepare for postpartum, or you just had your baby and congratulations. So the biggest thing is starting slow when you're trying to get back into exercise. So we teach everyone here at Revitalize to start with your basics. The biggest thing is trying to retrain the transverse abdominis, TA for short. So that muscle is the deepest core muscle. It wraps all the way around like a corset and hooks onto the spine, onto the pelvis, onto the rib cage. That muscle, when it cinches in, pulls in just like a corset would. It also works hand in hand with the pelvic floor. So it's kind of the main stabilizer of the spine, of the pelvis, and also a big player on pelvic floor. So that muscle, that's kind of what we want to target right away. You can typically start trying to work it pretty soon after delivery. You don't have to wait the 6 weeks to kind of get things going. Oftentimes that muscle shuts off during pregnancy. It's getting stretched and it can't contract. So after baby, we have to retrain that muscle to start activating again. It doesn't just do it automatically. So in your postpartum exercise cheat sheet, it teaches you how to do that. So I actually have a couple of those exercises in that cheat sheet that will teach you specifically how to reactivate and retrain that. So that's the first thing, starting with retraining that TA muscle. Then you're going to kind of progress from there. So you're really focused on stabilization first. So that's why we're working the TA. Then you're going to move into more of your strength training. So I always tell people kind of start with some easy body weight strength training exercises, whether it's squats and lunges, push-ups, things like that. Minimal weight, and you're just trying to kind of get back into some of the exercise patterns. Once you can do that for 2 weeks, then try adding some weight. Try adding some dumbbells into the same exercises. Do that for a little bit and kind of progress your weight as you can until, do that for several weeks, and then try to get into more high intensity exercises. So that's going to be your HIIT workouts, boot camp classes, running. The new guideline is that you shouldn't be doing any kind of high intense exercise until 12 weeks postpartum minimum. And that's only if you've done this exercise progression leading up to it, and only if you don't have any pelvic floor dysfunction. So that means you can run or jump without leaking. 12 weeks does seem like a long time, and I would say most people don't wait that long. But I think the biggest takeaway is that you really need to work that progression. Don't just jump back into running. Like a lot of people will wait the 6 weeks, they get their exercise clearance and jump in. That is going to lead to injuries and other problems. So kind of take it slow, do that progression in, and listen to your body while you're doing it. So if you're having any kind of like pain, strain, especially on the abdominals, or if anything is causing pelvic pressure, that would kind of indicate not to progress the exercises, that those are already a little too challenging for you. So it could be putting strain on a diastasis or on a prolapse, and we don't want to do that. So if you're doing anything and feeling that discomfort, then that's probably not the best exercise, and you need to scale back and try something different. So always listen to your body on that. Everyone's going to be different with what they can tolerate, and so it's really important that you don't keep pushing through that, because you could do more damage than good. And then the last thing is, really, I kind of mentioned it, you shouldn't be having any kind of pelvic floor dysfunction. So if you are leaking with jumping and running, the guidelines say that that's technically too challenging for you to scale it back to something that you can do without it. I will say that most people probably are not going to just quit doing it. And I get that completely. Oftentimes I try not to pull people out of what they really enjoy, but just know that you should be seeking help. It's not normal. It's not just part of becoming a mom and not something that you should just live with. So if that's the case, really seek out help with that. So then the next kind of subset is longer postpartum. So maybe you've already returned to exercise. It's been several months since you've had the baby. And now you're kind of like, ooh, I don't know if I should be doing this, or maybe you're having some issues and you're just not totally sure where to go from here. Potentially, like, you've tried some modifications, but you're just sort of unsure of where to go. So it has similar advice to newly postpartum. Always start with retraining that core, that TA. So if you didn't do kind of the retraining exercises, those stabilization exercises on the front end when you went back into exercise, now would be the time to kind of take a step back and try to do that. So oftentimes women are already into exercise. They're maybe back into, I don't know, an exercise class that they like. So I don't pull them out of that and say, oh, you have to stop completely and go back to square one and work your way in. I just say you need to modify what you're doing in class and then also incorporate those basics that we kind of missed on the front end. As I mentioned, that TA muscle, it shuts off and it doesn't just kick back on. No matter how much time has passed, it doesn't reactivate. You have to do the work to get it to do that. So it's never too late to kind of go back to the basics and retrain that and reactivate. So you're going to follow kind of the same progression with those stabilization exercises. But then you might also need to modify some of what you're already currently doing. So if you have any kind of issues, so for example, a diastasis, you might need to modify the exercises in the class that you're doing so that you're not doing crunches or Russian twists or planks. You might not be ready for those things. So it's really just more of a modification versus like stopping completely. I also want to say, same as before, like any kind of pain or discomfort, that's kind of a good rule of thumb that you need to change the exercise. So especially if you notice any kind of abdominal doming or coning where it kind of bulges up in the middle, that would indicate a diastasis and that the exercise you're doing is too much for it at that time, and that you should try to find something else to put in its place. And then same with pelvic pressure. So if you're having a lot of pelvic pressure and you have a prolapse, that exercise is going to be too much for you. So always listen to your body with that. Always modify or take something out if you're feeling those symptoms or any kind of pain or discomfort. And I also want to say that it's not too late. Like if you are having dysfunctions, have it addressed. A lot of times people think, oh, the longer, I give it, it'll get better on its own, or, the more exercises I do, the better it's going to get. Oftentimes, if you've been doing exercises for a while, things aren't better. It's time to seek help. So typically, if you've given it a month of trying exercise, sorry for that interruption, but you need to kind of figure something out then. So again, on that cheat sheet, I kind of have a whole list of exercises that aren't great exercises for postpartum, and things you can do to modify. So if you have already been back into exercise and you're doing some of those that are on the do not list, and you're feeling any kind of symptoms, so whether that's pain, discomfort, doming, then you would do the modification. So just to kind of give you an idea. I hope that helps answer questions and how to modify. A lot of times people think that they have to stop doing what they're doing completely. That's not the case. You might just need to go back to basics and add those in with it and modify some of those things too. And then also, really pay attention, listen to your body. I can't stress it enough. Everyone is coming into this journey differently and at different stages, and everyone presents differently. So you really are the only one that can be in charge of that. So you have to listen to that and pay attention to it. Your body is really smart at telling you, and so don't ignore it. Really pay attention. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions at all, feel free, drop them in the comments on the video or send us a message. We're happy to answer them. And I really hope that this helps you kind of get back to exercise and feeling strong and confident again, and kind of getting back to your normal self, if that exists anymore. So good luck, and I will see you next week when we kind of talk about a postpartum healing plan. So tune in next week, and I will see you then. Have a great night, everybody.